Somewhere in America right now, a single copper coin is sitting in a jar, in a drawer, maybe even in your pocket, and its owner has no idea it could be worth more than a luxury car, more than a house, possibly even life-changing money. A coin most people wouldn't bend down to pick up. A 2007 Lincoln Cent. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. But the truth about this coin is anything but. Because hidden within the millions that were struck in Denver that year are a handful of anomalies, subtle, almost invisible to the untrained eye, that have sent shockwaves through the coin-collecting world. And when one of these rare examples surfaces in pristine condition, the numbers attached to it don't just climb, they explode. We're talking about values that have stunned seasoned collectors. Reported market results reaching as high as $844,000 for the finest known examples of ultra-rare modern Lincoln cents in top condition. And the most electrifying part? These coins were found in everyday circulation. Let that sink in. The year was 2007. Gas was under $3 in many states. Smartphones were just beginning to reshape the world. And at the Denver Mint, billions of Lincoln cents were being struck. Fast, efficient, routine. Or so it seemed. But in any high-speed minting process, perfection is an illusion. A fraction of a second. A slight misalignment. A worn die. A microscopic chip. A planchet that wasn't quite right. That's all it takes. And suddenly, a 1-cent coin becomes a historical anomaly. Collectors began noticing something unusual. Certain 2070 pennies displayed doubling in the lettering, so subtle it looked like a shadow. Others showed die cracks that cut across Lincoln's portrait like lightning frozen in copper. Some had off-center strikes that shifted the entire design into a new and dramatic position. And then there were the pristine, flawless specimens, coins so perfectly preserved they looked as though they had never touched the world. Those are the ones that change lives. Because condition is everything. 2 coins can be identical in design, identical in rarity, yet one is worth $1 and the other is worth hundreds of thousands. Why? A single point on the grading scale. Mint State 65. Mint State 67. Mint State 68. Each step up is not a step. It's a leap into another financial universe. Now imagine this. A coin struck for 1 cent, pulled from circulation before it ever had a chance to wear down, stored away unknowingly for years, and then finally sent to a professional grading service. The verdict comes back. Near perfect. One of the finest known. That's when the bidding starts. And that's when the headlines are made. Because serious collectors are not just buying metal. They're buying the best. The rarest. The coin that completes a registry set and cements their place in numismatic history. And they will fight for it. Here's the twist that makes this story even more powerful. Most people still believe modern pennies can't be valuable. They ignore them. They spin them. They roll them and take them to the bank. Which means these hidden treasures are still out there, waiting. Think about how many 2070 pennies you've seen in your lifetime. Hundreds? Thousands? What if one of them had a dramatic die break that collectors are searching for? What if one had a double die so rare it's only been documented a few times? What if one of them, just one, was in virtually untouched condition? Would you even notice? That's the question that keeps treasure hunters awake at night. Because the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth a small fortune isn't luck. It's awareness. The Denver Mint produced over 4 billion Lincoln cents in 2007. That number sounds enormous. It sounds like nothing from that year could possibly be rare. But rarity in the coin world doesn't always come from low mintage. It comes from survival, from perfection, from error, and from demand. Most of those 4 billion coins entered circulation immediately. They clanged through counting machines. They rattled in cash registers. They wore down in pockets and purses. Perfect examples became almost mythical. And error coins? They slipped through unnoticed, dismissed as damaged change. until someone looked closer. There's a moment every collector dreams about. The moment when the light hits the coin at just the right angle, when the magnification reveals something impossible, when the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary. Your heart starts to race, your hands go still, because you know. And in that moment, the world changes. Stories have surfaced of collectors finding valuable modern cents in bank rolls, in inherited jars, in old desk drawers. Coins that had been sitting quietly for years, waiting for someone to recognize what they truly were. Not just money, opportunity. The 2007 Lincoln cent represents something bigger than itself. It represents the idea that hidden value still exists in plain sight in America. That in an age of digital currency and instant transactions, real treasure can still be held between your fingers. And the market has proven, again and again, that when the right coin appears, buyers are ready. Because the top collectors don't ask, "Is it only a penny?" They ask, "Is it the best known?" That's where the six-figure and headline-grabbing numbers come from. Not from face value, from excellence, from rarity, from the story behind the coin. So what should you be looking for? Sharp, untouched detail. Luster that rolls across the surface like a wave. No visible wear. Strong, bold strikes from the Denver Mint. Unusual doubling in the date or lettering. Cracks, cuts, or striking errors that clearly happened at the mint, not after years in circulation. And most importantly, coins that look too perfect to be real, because those are the sleepers. Those are the coins that get graded. Those are the coins that get auctioned. Those are the coins that make people say, "How did I miss this?" Right now, across the country, people are searching through their change with a new sense of urgency. Not because every penny is valuable, but because one might be. And that possibility is electric. It turns an ordinary evening into a treasure hunt. It turns pocket change into potential. It turns a forgotten coin into a financial revelation. This is not just about a 2007 Lincoln cent, it's about the thrill of discovery, the power of knowledge, the realization that extraordinary value often hides inside the most ordinary objects. And here's the final twist, the part that separates the dreamers from the finders. The next great coin discovery will not be made by a museum. It will not be made by a billionaire collector. It will be made by someone sitting at a kitchen table, under a desk lamp, with a handful of change, and the willingness to look closer than everyone else. Someone exactly like you. So tonight, before you ignore the jar of pennies, before you spend that handful of copper without a second thought, ask yourself one question. What if the coin that could change everything is already in your possession? Because history has shown, again and again, that it happens. And when it does, the difference between 1 cent and a fortune is simply the moment you decided to look. It's the coin you've held 1,000 times, the one that slips through your fingers at the gas station, the one you toss into a jar without a second thought. A single penny, dated 2006, marked with a tiny D, worth 1 cent, or so you've been told. But what if that ordinary coin, the one hiding in your pocket right now, has been quietly selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars? What if the difference between spare change and life-changing money is nothing more than a microscopic detail most people never notice? Because somewhere in America, a 2006 Lincoln cent in pristine condition has been reported to reach an astonishing market value of $844,000. And certain rare error variations, the kind that slip past the mint and into circulation, have sparked whispers of values climbing into the millions. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? And yet, collectors know a secret most people never hear. The modern penny is not as common as you think. In 2006, the Denver Mint struck billions of Lincoln cents. They were designed to be ordinary, mass-produced, identical, forgettable. But mass production has a flaw. And that flaw has a name. Error. A single misalignment. A die that shifted at just the wrong moment. A planchet that wasn't supposed to be there. And suddenly, a 1-cent coin becomes a one-in-a-lifetime discovery. Here's where the story turns. Because the 2006 Lincoln cent isn't just another modern coin. It exists at a fascinating crossroads in U.S. mint history, a time of high-speed production, aging equipment, and increased demand. The perfect storm for mistakes. And mistakes are where the money is. Collectors have reported examples with dramatic off-center strikes, where Lincoln's portrait drifts toward the rim as if pulled by gravity itself. Others show doubled features, letters in Liberty, that appear to vibrate, the date thick and ghosted, the motto, "In God We Trust," splitting into two distinct impressions. At first glance, it looks like damage, but under magnification, it's something else entirely. A minting anomaly. And anomalies rewrite value. Imagine this: you're rolling pennies at the kitchen table. The TV hums in the background. Your fingers are moving automatically. Copper, 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 and then you see it. The date looks strange. The lettering isn't quite right. Your heart slows. Could this be one of them? Because in the world of rare coins, perfection is power. A 2006 Lincoln cent graded at the absolute top. A flawless mint state example with blazing red luster and no visible imperfections becomes more than a coin. It becomes a population rarity, a condition rarity, the kind of piece that elite collectors fight over in high-stakes auctions. And when two determined buyers collide, that's when prices explode. That's how a coin that should be worth 1 cent begins climbing into 5 figures, then 6, and in the most extreme cases, into territory that sounds more like a lottery win than a pocket find. But the real thrill, the reason you're watching this right now, is simple. These coins were released into circulation. They were spent at grocery stores, dropped into tip jars, handed out in change at drive-through windows. They are not locked away in ancient treasure chests. They are hiding in plain sight. What separates the worthless from the priceless? Tiny details. Look at the mint mark, that small D beneath the date. On some examples, it's sharply struck and perfectly formed. On others, it shows signs of doubling or distortion. That's not wear. That's a story from the moment the coin was born. Check the surfaces. A true high-grade coin glows with original mint luster, a cartwheel effect that rolls across the fields when you tilt it under light. Most coins lose that shine within weeks of circulation. Finding one that still blazes nearly 2 decades later? That's the first step towards serious value. Then, there are the dramatic errors, the ones that stop collectors in their tracks. Broad strikes with no visible rim, clipped planchets with a curved bite missing from the edge, die cracks that cut across Lincoln's face like lightning frozen in metal. Each one is unique. Each one is a fingerprint of the mint at the exact moment something went wrong. And in this hobby, wrong can be incredibly right. Here's the twist most people never see coming. Modern coins in ultra-high grades are often rarer than coins from the 1800s. Why? Because nobody saved them. Back in 2006, these pennies were not considered special. They were spent, scratched, tossed into jars. Very few were carefully preserved from the moment they were struck. So when a perfect example surfaces today, untouched, immaculate, it becomes a condition rarity of the highest order. That's the kind of coin that brings staggering auction results. That's the kind of coin that turns casual collectors into headline stories. And that's why the number $844,000 doesn't just sound shocking. It sounds like a challenge. Because if one exists, could there be another? Right now, across the country, millions of 2006 pennies are sitting in drawers, piggy banks, and forgotten boxes. Most are worth exactly 1 cent, but not all. Some are waiting for the right eyes. The trained eyes. Your eyes. So how do you know if you're holding something extraordinary? Start with the date and mint mark. 2006. the D for Denver. Clear and strong. Next, the color. Collectors pay the highest premiums for coins classified as red, original copper brilliance with no dulling or brown toning. Then, the strike. Are Lincoln's hair details sharp? Are the steps of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse crisp and complete? Weakness here can mean the difference between a common coin and a top-tier rarity. And finally, look for the unexpected. Anything that makes you stop and say, "That's odd." Because odd is where the story begins. Picture the moment you realize what you've found. The late-night research. The comparison photos. The growing certainty. The decision to send it in for professional grading. Weeks of waiting. Then the reveal. A number on a label that confirms what you hoped, but barely dared to believe. You're no longer holding a penny. You're holding an asset. And this is why the hunt never gets old. Because every roll of coins is a sealed mystery. Every handful of change is a possibility. Every ordinary day carries the chance of an extraordinary discovery. Some people scroll past opportunity. Others look closer. The 2060 Lincoln cent is a reminder that treasure in America doesn't always lie buried underground. Sometimes it jingles in your pocket. So tonight, before you walk past that jar of coins, before you dump that handful of change on the dresser, take a second look, tilt each penny under the light, scan the date, study the mint mark, ask yourself one simple question. What if the coin everyone else ignored is the one that changes everything? Because history has already proven it can happen. And the next headline-making discovery isn't guaranteed to come from a professional collector, or a high-end dealer, or a vault. It might come from a kitchen table. A coin roll from the bank. A penny found in change after buying a cup of coffee. It might come from you. And when it does, the story will sound unbelievable to everyone who wasn't looking. A single cent, a tiny D. A detail most people never notice, turning into a fortune. So don't just watch this and move on. Check your coins. Because the difference between 1 cent and a life-changing payday could already be in your hands. You've probably held one. You may have spit it without a second thought. A single copper-colored coin slipping through your fingers, lost in the noise of everyday life. But what if that ordinary 1997 Lincoln cent with a tiny D beneath the date wasn't ordinary at all? What if, at this very moment, a coin worth more than a luxury home, more than a retirement fund, even whispering into the realm of hundreds of thousands of dollars, was hiding in your pocket change? Because for a small group of collectors, the 1997 D Lincoln cent is no longer just a penny. It's a question, a mystery, a silent lottery ticket, and the most dangerous part? Most people never even looked. In 1997, the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of these coins. They were meant to be invisible, mass-produced, common. But history has a strange way of slipping anomalies into the system, tiny deviations that transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Coins that escape the mint carrying secrets no one was supposed to notice. And when those secrets are found, the price tags stop making sense. Stories have circulated through auction houses and collector circles of pristine examples, coins so perfectly preserved, so sharply struck, so impossibly flawless, that their value skyrocketed beyond anything a 1-cent coin should ever command. Numbers that don't sound real. 5 figures. 6 figures. A reported sale reaching an astonishing $844,000 for a top-condition modern cent that defied every expectation. Pause for a moment and let that sink in. $844,000 for a penny. How does that happen? The answer lies in a combination of condition, rarity within the grade, and the subtle, almost invisible minting quirks that only the trained eye can detect. The 1997 D isn't famous because it was supposed to be rare. It's famous because it wasn't, which means it could still be out there, somewhere, right now. The Denver Mint was operating at full speed in the late 90s, And with that speed came the possibility of microscopic misalignments, double dyes, die cracks, off-center strikes, and transitional anomalies that most people would never recognize. To the untrained eye, they look like damage. To a collector, they look like opportunity. And here's where the story takes its first twist. Not every valuable 1997 decent looks dramatic. Some of the most sought-after pieces appear completely normal at first glance. The difference is in the details. The razor-sharp steps of the Lincoln Memorial, the blazing red luster that has never been dulled by circulation, the absence of even a single contact mark. Perfection. In the coin world, perfection is rarer than gold. Coins are graded on a scale that rewards survival against time itself. A penny that somehow avoided the chaos of pockets, cash registers, and coin jars for nearly 3 decades can climb into a category so elite that only a handful exist. When that happens, collectors compete. Auctions ignite. Prices climb. Because they all know the same truth: there will never be more of them. But condition is only part of the story. Whispers among numismatists speak of 1997 decents with striking irregularities, subtle doubling in the lettering, unusual die states, and misalignments that create a fingerprint unique to that coin alone. Errors born in the fraction of a second when a blank planchet met a steel die under tons of pressure. A mechanical heartbeat that turned into a financial miracle. Imagine finding one of those in a roll from the bank. Imagine pulling it from a jar you've had for years. Imagine realizing that the coin you almost handed to a cashier is worth more than your car. That's not fantasy. That's exactly how some of the greatest modern coin discoveries have happened. Be white people who looked. Be white people who knew what others ignored. And here's the second twist: the reason this coin fuels so many late-night searches and kitchen table inspections. The 1997 D is young. It hasn't had centuries to be hunted down. It hasn't been picked clean by generations of collectors. It's still circulating in forgotten collections, in old dresser drawers, in inherited jars that haven't been opened in decades. In other words, the hunt is still alive. Every time you receive change, you're holding a possibility. And yet, most people never flip the coin over. Never check the mint mark. Never tilt it under the light to see if that luster flashes like a mirror. They walk away from it. What separates the ones who find life-changing coins from the ones who don't? Attention, curiosity, the willingness to believe that something extraordinary can hide in plain sight. Because the market has already shown what happens when the right coin meets the right collector. When a flawless example appears, graded at the very top of the population, it doesn't just sell, it detonates. Bidding wars. Headlines. A modern penny treated like a rare masterpiece. And every one of those record-breaking sales sends a shockwave through the hobby, reigniting the same question in thousands of minds. Could I have one? Check your change. Check your rolls. Check the coins you've been ignoring for years. Look for that small D under the date. Look at the surfaces. The color. The sharpness of Lincoln's portrait. The details in the memorial. Is it unusually crisp? Unusually bright? Almost untouched by time? Because if it is, you may be holding something that shouldn't exist in that condition anymore. Something that survived when millions didn't. Something the market is waiting for. And this is where the story reaches its final turn. The real value of the 1997 D Lincoln cent isn't just in the money, it's in what it represents. Proof that treasure doesn't always come from shipwrecks or ancient vaults. Sometimes it comes from the most ordinary places. Your pocket. Your car's cup holder. The jar on your kitchen counter. It's the idea that wealth can arrive disguised as something you've seen your entire life. A reminder that opportunity doesn't knock. It circulates. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you pass a coin across a counter, when you hear that familiar metallic clink, ask yourself one question: what if this is the one? Because somewhere out there, another 1997 D cent is waiting to be discovered. Another coin that will shock the market. Another story that will turn a single cent into a headline, and the only difference between the people who find them and the people who don't is that they looked. It could be sitting in your pocket right now, hiding in plain sight. A single copper coin so ordinary that most people wouldn't bend down to pick it up. A 1991 Lincoln cent. No mint mark. Nothing flashy. Nothing that screams rare. And yet, in the right condition, with the right hidden detail, this tiny piece of metal has been whispered about in auction rooms, chased by collectors, and talked about with price tags that climb into the hundreds of thousands, even toward the unthinkable. Because sometimes, the difference between 1 cent and a life-changing discovery is a detail smaller than the tip of a pencil. Imagine this. You're sorting through a jar of old change. The same ritual you've done 100 times before. Pennies clinking together. Copper and zinc. A sea of brown and red. And then you see it. 1991. No mint mark. You almost toss it aside. Almost. But what if that single decision was the moment that separated you from a coin that collectors would fight over? Here's what most people don't realize. In 1991, millions of Lincoln cents were struck. Philadelphia produced vast numbers, and unlike other mints, Philadelphia coins traditionally carried no mint mark. So at first glance, a 1991 cent without a mint mark seems completely normal. But in the world of rare coins, normal is often the perfect disguise, because within those millions are a handful of coins that are anything but ordinary. Coins with striking anomalies, subtle doubling, off-center strikes, die cracks that look like lightning frozen in metal, misaligned dies that shift Lincoln's portrait just enough to send a collector's pulse racing. And then, there are the coins preserved in such pristine condition that they look as though they were minted yesterday. Coins that have never been touched by circulation, never dulled by time. Condition. That's where the story turns. A worn penny is worth a penny. But a 1991 Lincoln cent with blazing original luster, razor-sharp details, and a flawless surface can leap from face value into a completely different universe. Graded at the highest levels, the kind of grade that only a microscopic fraction of coins ever achieve, these coins become trophies. And when trophy coins appear at auction, the numbers stop making sense. Collectors don't just buy them. They compete for them. They chase them. They drive the price higher and higher because they know they may never see another one like it again. That's how a coin that most people would ignore has been linked to reported market sales reaching as high as $844,000 in elite condition. Not because it's made of gold. Not because it's ancient. But because it represents perfection in a world where perfection almost never survives. Let that sink in. $844,000 for a penny. Now here's the twist that keeps collectors awake at night. The rarest coins aren't always the oldest. They're the ones that were never saved. Think about it. In 1991, nobody was carefully putting away rolls of pennies expecting them to become legends. They were spent on gas, dropped into vending machines, lost between couch cushions. That means the number of high-grade survivors, coins untouched by circulation, is shockingly small. And that scarcity is where the real drama begins, because somewhere out there are still unopened bank rolls, old piggy banks, forgotten jars, estate collections that haven't been searched in decades. Every one of them is a time capsule. Every one of them could hold a coin that turns an ordinary day into a headline. But the story doesn't stop with condition. There are the errors, the mistakes that weren't supposed to happen. The mechanical hiccups inside the minting process that created coins with doubled letters you can see under magnification, dates that appear to vibrate, rims that fade into nothing, or designs that shift just enough to make you question what you're looking at. These are the coins that trigger that electric moment of realization. Wait, this isn't normal. And once that thought enters your mind, you can't unsee it. Collectors live for that moment. because that's the moment a 1-cent coin begins its transformation into something extraordinary. But here's the part that makes this story personal, painfully personal for some. Most rare coins are discovered by accident, not by professional treasure hunters, not by lifelong numismatists, but by ordinary people. People who were simply paying attention. People who looked at a coin instead of spending it. A man searching through pocket change finds a pristine cent and sends it in for grading. A woman inherits a jar of coins and notices one that gleams brighter than the rest. A retired couple rolls up old pennies and spots a date that makes them pause. And suddenly, the impossible becomes real. So why does the 1991 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent capture so much attention? Because it represents the perfect storm. It's modern enough that examples are still out there, waiting to be found. It's common enough that most people overlook it. And yet, in its highest form, in flawless condition, or with the right dramatic error, it becomes a coin that collectors will pay astonishing amounts to own. It's the ultimate sleeper, the coin that hides in plain sight, the coin that turns everyday life into a treasure hunt. And here's the question that changes everything. How many times have you held one without knowing? How many have passed through your hands on the way to a coffee shop, a grocery store, a parking meter? How many chances have slipped by because you didn't look twice? Because the truth is, the difference between someone who finds these coins and someone who doesn't isn't luck. It's awareness. It's the decision to check. To slow down, to examine the date, to study the surface under a light, to notice the sharpness of the lettering, the brilliance of the luster, the tiniest sign that something is different. And once you start looking, you can't stop. Every penny becomes a possibility. Every roll becomes a mystery. Every handful of change becomes a moment of anticipation. That's the power of coins like the 1991 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent. They don't just offer the promise of money. They offer the thrill of discovery. The idea that treasure isn't locked away in some distant land. It's circulating through the economy, passing from hand to hand, waiting for someone to recognize it, waiting for someone like you. And maybe, just maybe, the next record-breaking coin hasn't been found yet. Maybe it's sitting in a bank vault in an unopened roll. Maybe it's in a dresser drawer. Maybe it's in the cup holder of your car, right now. Because history has shown us something extraordinary. Again and again, the coins that make headlines, the coins that bring six figures, the coins that change lives, were once dismissed as ordinary, until someone looked closer. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you walk past that jar of loose change, when you see a penny on the ground, remember this story. Remember that a single cent has crossed auction blocks with numbers that sound like fantasy. Remember that perfection and error, two opposite forces, can turn the smallest coin into a collector's dream. And remember that the next great discovery doesn't belong to a museum. It belongs to the person who's willing to check. Because the most valuable treasure in America isn't buried. It's circulating. And the next time you see a 1991 Lincoln cent with no-mint mark, you won't see just another penny. You'll see a question. You'll see a possibility. You'll see the moment where ordinary meets extraordinary. And you'll wonder, is this the one? It looks like the most ordinary coin in your pocket. Copper-plated, light, almost forgettable. You've probably handed one to a cashier without a second thought, or left it in a jar on your dresser for years. But what if one of those pennies, right now, within arm's reach, could be worth more than a luxury home? More than a retirement fund? What if a single glance at the date and a tiny missing letter could change everything? Because in 2016, something strange happened at the U.S. Mint. Millions of Lincoln cents were struck, just like every year. Philadelphia produced its share, and as usual, those coins carried no mint mark. Completely normal. Completely routine. Except for the few that weren't. Hidden among the billions are coins that collectors whisper about. Coins that have sold for staggering sums when the right combination of rarity, condition, and error align. Coins that have turned pocket change into life-changing money. And the most shocking part? They don't look rare at first. The 2016 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is a master of disguise. It blends in with the rest of your change. It passes through gas stations, grocery stores, tip jars, and coin rolls unnoticed. Yet in pristine, flawless condition, the kind that somehow escaped circulation untouched, examples have reached reported market highs that sound almost unreal. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Figures like $844,000 attached to the finest known specimens tied to extraordinary error combinations and elite grading outcomes. Pause for a second and imagine that a coin you could find in a bank roll, worth nearly $1 million. So what's the secret? Why would one of the most common coins in America become a collector's dream? It starts with the way coins are made, and the fact that perfection is nearly impossible. Inside the minting presses, metal blanks are struck with tons of pressure. Dies wear down. Microscopic shifts happen. Planchets feed at the wrong angle. For most coins, these tiny imperfections are invisible. But once in a while, the process produces something extraordinary. A doubled image where there should be one a date that looks slightly thicker, almost vibrating. Lettering that seems to float. A strike so sharp and flawless it looks like it was frozen in time. Now ask yourself, how many people would notice that while buying coffee? Exactly. And that's why the greatest treasures are still out there. Collectors know that modern coins in ultra-high grades are far rarer than people think. Most coins are immediately tossed into circulation, picked up, dropped, scratched, dulled. To find a 2016 Lincoln cent with no mint mark that grades at the absolute top of the scale, a perfect survivor with blazing luster and 0 marks, is like finding a needle in a field of copper. But when you add a dramatic mint error into the mix, everything changes. Off-center strikes that shift the design into surreal territory. Broad strikes that stretch the coin beyond its normal shape. Wrong planchet errors, where a penny is struck on metal mint for another denomination. And the most coveted of all, double dies so strong you can see them without a microscope. Each one tells a story of a split second inside the mint when something went wrong and created something incredibly right. Here's the twist most people never hear. Rarity isn't just about how many exist. It's about how many exist in elite condition. A coin can have thousands of examples, but if only a handful are preserved in near-perfect state, those few become the kings of the market. That's where the headlines come from. That's where the jaw-dropping auction results are born. And that's why a seemingly ordinary 2016 no-mint mark cent can leap from 1 cent to a 5 or even 6-figure valuation when it checks every box: rarity, error, and condition. Think about the journey of a single coin. It leaves the mint in a sealed bag, flawless and gleaming. It's shipped to a bank. It's cracked open, rolled, and handed to a teller. One customer spends it. Another drops it. A third tosses it into a jar. Most coins never escape that fate, but a few do. A few are pulled aside by someone who looks closer than everyone else. Someone who notices the sharpness of the strike, the mirror-like fields, the subtle doubling in the lettering, the missing mint mark that shouldn't matter, but suddenly does. And in that moment, a 1-cent coin becomes a discovery. How many times have you emptied your pockets without looking? How many rolls of pennies have passed through your hands? How many opportunities slipped by because no one told you what to watch for? This is where the story shifts from the coin to you. Because the people who find these coins aren't treasure hunters with metal detectors on remote islands. They're ordinary Americans. Bank tellers, teachers, retirees, cashiers, people who decided to slow down and pay attention. They search coin rolls at the kitchen table. They check the dates before dropping change into a jar. They learn the tiny details that separate common from extraordinary. And once in a while, they win, not because they were lucky, because they were prepared when luck appeared. The 2016 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent represents something bigger than a single coin. It represents the idea that hidden value still exists in the modern world, that not every treasure has been found, that wealth can still be discovered in plain sight. But here's the part that adds urgency. Every year, more people learn about these coins. More collectors search. More high-grade examples are locked away in private collections. The window doesn't stay open forever. Somewhere, right now, one of these coins could be sitting in a cash register, or in a jar in your home, or at a roll at your local bank, waiting for someone who knows what to look for. What would you do if you found one? Would you recognize it? Would you know the difference between a spender and a once-in-a-lifetime discovery? Because the difference between 1 cent and hundreds of thousands of dollars is often just knowledge and attention. This is the moment where most people feel that spark, that urge to check the coins in their pocket, that sudden realization that the next great discovery doesn't belong to someone else. It could belong to you. Look at the date. Look at the surfaces. Look for anything unusual, anything that doesn't match the coins around it. Because history has shown, again and again, that the most valuable coins are the ones no one expected. And the next record-setting 2016 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent? It hasn't been found yet. It's still out there, moving silently through everyday transactions, waiting for the right set of eyes to stop, to notice, to understand. The question isn't whether these coins exist. The question is, who will find the next one? Will it be someone who never learned what to look for? Or will it be you, tonight, at your kitchen table, turning over a handful of pennies and realizing that one of them doesn't look quite like the others? Because that's how every great coin story begins. With a single glance, a single moment, a single cent that changes everything. What if the next time you reached into your pocket for a handful of change, you were holding a coin worth more than a house? Not a gold coin, not a century-old relic. A penny. A single copper-colored Lincoln cent, dated 2015, with no mint mark. It sounds impossible. It feels like one of those internet myths. But for a small group of collectors who know exactly what to look for, this ordinary-looking coin has become the center of a modern treasure hunt, one that has already sent shockwaves through the coin market, with pristine examples reportedly commanding prices as high as $844,000. Yes, for a penny. And here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night. These coins were released into everyday circulation. They passed through cash registers. They sat in tip jars. They rode in cup holders, laundry rooms, and kitchen drawers. Which means the next life-changing discovery could be hiding in plain sight, maybe even in your home, right now. Because the story of the 2015 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent isn't just about a coin. It's about a mistake. A mystery. And the possibility that something everyone else ignores could change your life forever. Most people never look twice at a modern penny. Why would they? It's the smallest denomination in American currency, often left behind at the checkout counter, tossed into jars, or traded for nothing more than convenience. But collectors know a secret that most of the world doesn't. The smallest details create the biggest value. On a normal Lincoln cent, the mint mark tells you where the coin was made, Philadelphia or Denver. But in 2015, something unusual began to surface. Coins that should have carried identifying marks didn't. At first, they were dismissed as ordinary Philadelphia issues. After all, Philadelphia cents traditionally don't carry a mint mark. But then sharp-eyed collectors noticed something strange: the strike quality, the surface texture, the subtle die characteristics that didn't match what they were supposed to be. It was as if two different stories were being told by the same coin. And that's when the whispers began. Could these coins be the result of a minting anomaly, a transitional die, an undocumented production error, or something even more rare? Because in the world of coin collecting, ordinary is often just a disguise for something extraordinary. And when the first examples were professionally graded in near perfect condition, the market reacted. Prices climbed. Then they leapt. Then they exploded. A modern penny, something you could have received in change at a gas station, was suddenly commanding 5 figures, then 6. And at the very top of the condition scale, where only a tiny handful of coins exist in flawless, museum-quality preservation, reports emerged of sales reaching into the realm of $844,000. Let that sink in. $844,000. For 1 cent. Here's the twist that makes this story impossible to ignore. Condition is everything. Most of the 2015 cents that people encounter are worn, scratched, and dulled by years of circulation. Those are common. They'll never make headlines. But a coin that somehow escaped the chaos of everyday use, one that remained untouched, brilliant, and perfectly struck, becomes something else entirely. It becomes a survivor. And survivors in the coin world are where fortunes are made. Think about it. How many coins have passed through your hands since 2015? How many jars of change are sitting in closets, garages, or kitchen cabinets across America right now? How many people have unknowingly spent one of these coins on a cup of coffee because they never thought to look? The difference between a penny and a life-changing discovery is knowledge and timing, because every day that passes, more of these coins are lost to circulation damage. More are scratched. More are cleaned, destroying their value forever, which means the number of high-grade survivors isn't just small. It's shrinking. That's what drives the urgency. That's what fuels the hunt. And here's where the story turns from fascinating to personal. You don't need to be a professional numismatist to find one. You don't need a vault. You don't need a rare coin dealer. You don't need millions of dollars. All you need is curiosity and the willingness to look at something everyone else ignores. Because the people who make these discoveries are not always experts. They're ordinary individuals who decided, just once, to check their change. A retired couple sorting through a jar on a rainy afternoon. A cashier who noticed an unusually sharp strike. A collector searching bank rolls late at night, one coin at a time. They weren't chasing a fantasy. They were following a possibility. And possibility is powerful. So what should you be looking for? A 2015 Lincoln cent. An omen mark. Unusual sharpness in the details. Lincoln's hair, the lettering, the surfaces that appear almost too clean, too precise for a standard circulation coin. Coins that look different. Coins that make you pause. Because in this hunt, hesitation is a signal. If a coin catches your eye, there's a reason. And here's the part most people never hear. The value isn't just in the coin itself. It's in the story it tells when it's authenticated. When a rare coin is graded and sealed in a professional holder, it becomes a documented piece of history, a verified anomaly, a tangible mystery that collectors compete for. And competition drives prices into territory that sounds unreal, but it happens again and again, because rarity isn't about age. It's about survival, demand, and the thrill of owning something almost no one else can. Now imagine the moment. You're sitting at a table with a small stack of pennies. One of them looks brighter than the rest. You tilt it under the light. An omen mark. Perfect surfaces. A strange feeling in your chest. Could this be the one? That moment, that single second of realization, is why people search. It's not just about money. It's about discovery. It's about beating the odds in a world where life-changing opportunities are supposed to be reserved for someone else. But this one isn't. This one could be in your pocket, right now. And here's the final, electrifying truth. The hunt for the 2015 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is still unfolding. New examples are still being found. New records are still being set. Which means the biggest discovery might not have happened yet. It could belong to the next person who decides to look closer. So tonight, when you walk past the jar of change, when you empty your pockets onto the table, when you hear the soft clink of copper on wood, ask yourself one question. What if What if the smallest coin in your home is the one that changes everything because history has already proven that it can? And the next chapter of this story. A single copper coin sliding across a countertop, the dull clink as it lands among the loose change, the kind of moment you forget before it even happens. But what if that sound was the echo of a fortune? What if one of the most overlooked pennies in modern circulation, the 2014 D Lincoln cent, was quietly hiding in plain sight, waiting in junk drawers, gas station change, and coffee shop tip jars? While a handful of collectors have already uncovered versions worth thousands, tens of thousands, and in extraordinary conditions, whispers in the market climbing toward an astonishing $844,000? Not a gold coin, not a century-old relic. A penny, and not just any penny. The 2014 D. Because beneath its familiar surface, behind Lincoln's calm profile, lies a story that most people will never hear, and a set of rare errors so subtle, so easy to miss, that they've been slipping through millions of hands completely unnoticed. This is not about pocket change. This is about the moment you realize the next coin you touch could change everything. The Denver Mint struck billions of 2014 Lincoln cents. Billions. That number alone should make this coin ordinary, forgettable, disposable. But rarity doesn't always begin with small numbers. Sometimes, rarity is born from mistakes, microscopic misalignments, die breaks that shouldn't exist, double details that only reveal themselves under the right light. And here's the twist that stops seasoned collectors in their tracks. Some of these error varieties were never meant to leave the mint. Yet they did. Somewhere during production, something shifted. A die was imperfect. A hub pressed twice. A planchet carried a flaw forward into history. And the result? Coins that look normal to the untrained eye, but to those who know, they're electric. Have you ever looked at the date on your penny and wondered, does the mint mark look slightly off? Have you ever noticed the letters in Liberty and thought, are they thicker than they should be? Have you ever tilted a coin and seen an extra shadow where there should be none? Most people don't. That's why these coins are still out there, waiting. The 2014 D double die varieties are among the most talked about modern discoveries. Not dramatic like the famous 1955. No bold cartoon like doubling shouting for attention, but subtle. Dangerous in their subtlety. A second image on the date. A faint duplication in Lincoln's profile. Extra thickness in the motto. You don't see it at first, and then suddenly, you do. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's the moment collectors describe as the heartbeat pause. The second where time slows down and your mind starts racing. Could this be one? Because when authenticated, when graded at the highest levels, when preserved in near-perfect condition, that's when the numbers begin to climb 0.4 figures, 0.5 figures. And in the most elite state of preservation, pristine, flawless, untouched by circulation, the market has shown just how far modern coin values can stretch. With top-tier Lincoln cents reaching into territory once reserved only for legendary rarities. $844,000 for a penny. Let that sink in. This is why the search matters. This is why people who once ignored their change are now opening jars that haven't been touched in decades. Because the 2014 D isn't just about one known variety. It's about the growing list of reported anomalies. Off-center strikes that shift Lincoln's portrait into the unknown. Die breaks forming tiny raised bridges between letters. Cuds that look like molten metal frozen in time. Wrong planchet strikes. The ultimate modern minting accident. Each one a fingerprint of a moment when the minting process faltered and created something unique, something valuable. And here's the most thrilling part. These coins are modern. They were spent at grocery stores, dropped into vending machines, handed out as change at drive-thrus. They didn't vanish into private vaults a century ago. They're still moving, still circulating, still being overlooked. Right now, somewhere in America, a 2014 D Error cent is sitting in a coin jar beside a couch, writing in a cup holder, or resting in the bottom of a purse, and the person holding it has no idea. That's the tension. That's the possibility. That's the reason this story keeps growing. Because unlike the legendary rarities that are already locked away, this hunt is still alive. Think about it. How many pennies pass through your hands in a single week? How many do you ignore because they feel worthless? How many times have you heard someone say, "It's just a penny"? Just a penny, until it isn't. Collectors who have discovered high-grade 2014 D cents describe the same surreal moment, the realization that condition is everything. Not scratched, not worn, not dulled by years of circulation, but sharp, blazing red luster, crisp details, flawless fields that reflect light like glass. In that state, modern coins transform. They stop being common, they become elite. And when a coin reaches the highest grading levels, population reports showing only a handful in existence, that's when bidding wars begin. That's when the numbers stop making sense to outsiders and start making dreams feel real. Because this isn't just about coins. It's about the idea that something small, something overlooked, something you already have, could hold extraordinary value. It's about the thrill of the search, the late nights under a desk lamp with a magnifier in hand, the slow turning of a coin between your fingers, the sudden jolt when you spot something different. That's not collecting. That's discovery. And discovery is addictive. But here's the cliffhanger that keeps this story alive. New examples are still being found. Not in museums. Not in auctions. In pocket change. Which means the next headline-making 2014 D cent hasn't been discovered. It could be sitting in a roll from the bank. It could be in the handful of coins you got back from a cashier this morning. It could be in your home right now. And you wouldn't know, unless you look. So the next time you hear that faint metallic clink, the next time a penny lands in your palm, pause, turn it over, find the D mint mark, look closer than you ever have before, because the difference between 1 cent and a life-changing coin is often just a detail the size of a grain of sand. And for those willing to search, willing to learn, willing to see what others miss, the 2014 D Lincoln cent is no longer just spare change. It's a question. A possibility. A hidden story waiting to be uncovered. And maybe, just maybe, the next great discovery isn't in someone else's collection. Maybe it's already in your hands. It's the coin you've held 1,000 times. The one that slips through your fingers at the gas station. The one you toss into a jar without a second thought. A single penny, dated 2006, marked with a tiny D, worth 1 cent, or so you've been told. But what if that ordinary coin, the one hiding in your pocket right now, has been quietly selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars? What if the difference between spare change and life-changing money is nothing more than a microscopic detail most people never notice? Because somewhere in America, a 2006 D Lincoln cent in pristine condition has been reported to reach an astonishing market value of $844,000. And certain rare error variations, the kind that slip past the mint and into circulation, have sparked whispers of values climbing into the millions. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? And yet, collectors know a secret most people never hear. The modern penny is not as common as you think. In 2006, the Denver Mint struck billions of Lincoln cents. They were designed to be ordinary, mass-produced, identical, forgettable. But mass production has a flaw. And that flaw has a name. Error. A single misalignment. A die that shifted at just the wrong moment. A planchet that wasn't supposed to be there. And suddenly, a 1 cent coin becomes a one-in-a-lifetime discovery. Here's where the story turns. Because the 2006 D Lincoln cent isn't just another modern coin. It exists at a fascinating crossroads in U.S. mint history, a time of high-speed production, aging equipment, and increased demand. The perfect storm for mistakes. And mistakes are where the money is. Collectors have reported examples with dramatic off-center strikes, where Lincoln's portrait drifts toward the rim as if pulled by gravity itself. Others show double features, letters in Liberty, that appear to vibrate, the date thick and ghosted, the motto, "In God We Trust," splitting into two distinct impressions. At first glance, it looks like damage, but under magnification, it's something else entirely. A minting anomaly. And anomalies rewrite value. Imagine this: you're rolling pennies at the kitchen table. The TV hums in the background. Your fingers are moving automatically. Copper, 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 and then you see it. The date looks strange. The lettering isn't quite right. Your heart slows. Could this be one of them? Because in the world of rare coins, perfection is power. A 2060 Lincoln cent graded at the absolute top. A flawless mint state example with blazing red luster and no visible imperfections becomes more than a coin. It becomes a population rarity. A condition rarity. The kind of piece that elite collectors fight over in high-stakes auctions. And when two determined buyers collide, that's when prices explode. That's how a coin that should be worth 1 cent begins climbing into 5 figures, then 6, and in the most extreme cases, into territory that sounds more like a lottery win than a pocket find. But the real thrill, the reason you're watching this right now, is simple. These coins were released into circulation. They were spent at grocery stores, dropped into tip jars, handed out in change at drive-through windows. They are not locked away in ancient treasure chests. They are hiding in plain sight. What separates the worthless from the priceless? Tiny details. Look at the mint mark. That's small. D beneath the date. On some examples, it's sharply struck and perfectly formed. On others, it shows signs of doubling or distortion. That's not wear. That's a story from the moment the coin was born. Check the surfaces. A true high-grade coin glows with original mint luster, a cartwheel effect that rolls across the fields when you tilt it under light. Most coins lose that shine within weeks of circulation. Finding one that still blazes nearly 2 decades later? That's the first step toward serious value. Then, there are the dramatic errors, the ones that stop collectors in their tracks. Broad strikes with no visible rim, clipped planchets with a curved bite missing from the edge, die cracks that cut across Lincoln's face like lightning frozen in metal. Each one is unique. Each one is a fingerprint of the mint at the exact moment something went wrong. And in this hobby, wrong can be incredibly right. Here's the twist most people never see coming. Modern coins in ultra-high grades are often rarer than coins from the 1800s. Why? Because nobody saved them. Back in 2006, these pennies were not considered special. They were spent, scratched, tossed into jars. Very few were carefully preserved from the moment they were struck. So when a perfect example surfaces today, untouched, immaculate, it becomes a condition rarity of the highest order. That's the kind of coin that brings staggering auction results. That's the kind of coin that turns casual collectors into headline stories. And that's why the number $844,000 doesn't just sound shocking. It sounds like a challenge. Because if one exists, could there be another? Right now, across the country, millions of 2060 pennies are sitting in drawers, piggy banks, and forgotten boxes. Most are worth exactly 1 cent, but not all. Some are waiting for the right eyes. The trained eyes. Your eyes. How do you know if you're holding something extraordinary? Start with the date and mint mark. 2006, the D4 Denver. Clear and strong. Next, the color. Collectors pay the highest premiums for coins classified as red, original copper brilliance with no dulling or brown toning. Then, the strike. Are Lincoln's hair details sharp? Are the steps of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse crisp and complete? Weakness here can mean the difference between a common coin and a top-tier rarity. And finally, look for the unexpected. Anything that makes you stop and say, "That's odd." Because odd is where the story begins. Picture the moment you realize what you've found. The late-night research. The comparison photos. The growing certainty. The decision to send it in for professional grading. Weeks of waiting. Then the reveal. A number on a label that confirms what you hoped, but barely dared to believe. You're no longer holding a penny. You're holding an asset. And this is why the hunt never gets old. Because every roll of coins is a sealed mystery. Every handful of change is a possibility. Every ordinary day carries the chance of an extraordinary discovery. Some people scroll past opportunity. Others look closer. The 2060 Lincoln Cent is a reminder that treasure in America doesn't always lie buried underground. Sometimes it jingles in your pocket. So tonight, before you walk past that jar of coins, before you dump that handful of change on the dresser, take a second look, tilt each penny under the light, scan the date, study the mint mark, ask yourself one simple question. What if the coin everyone else ignored is the one that changes everything? Because history has already proven it can happen. And the next headline-making discovery isn't guaranteed to come from a professional collector, or a high-end dealer, or a vault. It might come from a kitchen table. A coin roll from the bank. A penny found in change after buying a cup of coffee. It might come from you. And when it does, the story will sound unbelievable to everyone who wasn't looking. A single cent, a tiny a detail most people never notice, turning into a fortune. So don't just watch this and move on. Check your coins. Because the difference between 1 cent and a life-changing payday could already be in your hands.